Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: thousands of human bodies allegedly stolen from crematoriums and butchered for profit. What we know about the now censored post. Is TikTok suppressing content that exposes China's human rights violations? That is what researchers from Rutgers University say they discovered, and that the app is using its algorithms to do it. A new smear campaign inciting social media influencers to support the Chinese Communist Party's human rights abuses. The State Department responding to the regime's latest effort to undermine U.S. sovereignty. No flag, no anthem, no name. Taiwan competed in the 2024 Paris Olympics without its identity, forbidden from showing its flag, singing its anthem, or even using its name. What's behind the restrictions?
Taiwan's going to be the one that has to be offended because they don't want to offend Beijing.
Selling bodies. The morbid hashtag topped search charts on China's social media, but has been wiped by censors. This after an indictment surfaced accusing a Chinese firm of allegedly stealing bodies from crematoriums, then dismembering them for profit. Here's more.
A social media post shining a light on the business of turning human remains into profit in China. Just a warning, the following content may be disturbing for some viewers. A Chinese lawyer posted an indictment on the country's largest social media platform last Thursday. It accused a Chinese company of illegally procuring thousands of bodies nationwide, then, quote, brutally dismembering them and culling flesh from bones. The processed human remains were then sold as bone grafting materials. Bone grafting is kind of surgery that involves using transplanted bones to repair damaged bones in a living patient. It's widely used in dental surgery. The indictment said the company made over $50 million from such practices over 8 years. It allegedly sent staff to steal over 4,000 bodies from funeral homes and crematoriums. It also allegedly bought a dozen bodies from a doctor in Shandong. The doctor dissected body parts, froze them, then sold them for over $1,000 each. What's more, the Chinese company reportedly forged donor registration forms to obscure its illegal sourcing. And it didn't accept just any bodies. The deceased had to have been between 20 and 60 years old. And they could not have died from disease. Because of the requirements, a human rights activist is casting doubt where the bodies come from.
If those bodies did not come from those that died of disease, and also must be within a certain age range, it's reminiscent of the Chinese Communist Party's decades-long practice of forced organ harvesting.
Forced organ harvesting refers to the practice of harvesting organs from prisoners of conscience, then selling them for profit. An international tribunal in London concluded that members of the Falun Gong faith group were probably the main source of China's organ supply. Falun Gong is a mind-body spiritual meditation practice that has faced brutal persecution in China for over 2 decades. Most of the Chinese media reports related to the indictment have been deleted. We'll keep you updated as the situation develops.
A new study conducted by Rutgers University says TikTok is using its algorithms for a troubling purpose: to suppress content that exposes China's human rights violations. Joining us now is NTD's Flora Hua. Flora, tell us more.
Yes, Tiff. So the report says TikTok, quote, actively suppresses content critical of the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP, while simultaneously boosting pro-China propaganda and promoting distracting, irrelevant content. To conduct the study, the researchers created 24 accounts on 3 popular video platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, pretending to be 16-year-old users. The goal was to test what kind of feed they can get when searching words tied to human rights accusations against China, including Uyghur, Xinjiang, Tibet, and Tiananmen. They collected a database of over 3,400 videos. Compared to other American-funded companies, TikTok contains significantly fewer videos criticizing China for these issues, and at least 10% more videos with a pro-China tone. The study also pointed out that there are more travel and lifestyle videos which paint China in a good light were found on TikTok. Critics of China, including those discussing genocide and other human rights abuses, are, quote, systematically shut down. In a statement to the Epoch Times, TikTok spokesperson dismissed the Rutgers study, calling the research report a false, predetermined conclusion.
And Flora, thanks for that. The U.S. State Department is calling on the Chinese Communist regime to end its 25-year-long campaign to eradicate Falun Gong, a spiritual discipline that promotes self-improvement through the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. Here's what a government spokesperson told NTD. The People's Republic of China's repression often extends beyond its borders as authorities engage in transnational repression to surveil, threaten, and harass PRC nationals, including Falun Gong practitioners, to silence those who have fled persecution due to their religious or ethnic identity and seek safety abroad. The State Department released that response after a recent report which revealed that the Chinese regime is launching a new strategy to eradicate Falun Gong abroad, where it's been flourishing in free societies. Internal notes from a meeting of the regime's Ministry of Public Security detail the plan to equip YouTubers around abroad to attack Falun Gong and Shenyun, a performing arts company founded by Falun Gong practitioners. The report says that the same individuals who are promoting CCP propaganda on social media have also spoken to New York Times reporters, quote, raising questions as to whether the paper's reporting is being affected by a CCP-supported smear campaign. In response, the State Department is urging the CCP to uphold its international commitments and end its now 25-year campaign to eradicate Falun Gong. To discuss more about the report, we spoke with Nick Haley, researcher at the Falun Dafa Information Center, who worked on the report. Nick Haley, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
And to begin, you actually helped on this report. What is new about this campaign?
Right. So, as you know, the Chinese regime has been targeting Falun Gong in China for decades, and they've also been targeting Falun Gong around the world. But what's really new here is the emphasis that they're placing on the international community of Falun Gong practitioners, particularly when it comes to the narrative about what Falun Gong is. They're talking about amplifying the content through fake accounts across different social media platforms. And then they're also talking about manipulating search engine results, as well as activating embedded agents within the Falun Gong community.
And if the Chinese Communist Party succeeds in its campaign here to eradicate Falun Gong, what would be the impact?
Well, I think on the international front, I don't think there's really any chance that they could really get rid of Falun Gong, but I think what they really see as their goal is trying to eliminate the support that, U.S. government officials around the world have shown to the Falun Gong community, condemning the persecution. I think the Chinese regime would really like to see that stop. And so were the regime to succeed in this campaign, essentially having the international community buy into this disinformation, I think you'd see less support from those officials, less support from the international community more broadly. And that has broad implications. And if they can do this against a group of peaceful meditators, imagine what they can do to U.S. companies who the Chinese regime views as competitors to its state-owned enterprises.
And given all of that, what should Americans and the U.S. government do about this to combat the Chinese Communist regime's influence in America?
Well, for one thing, given that they're pushing this disinformation on so many different levels, from YouTubers to these fake accounts across all the social media platforms. I think they're really hoping that these narratives get picked up by major Western media outlets. And unfortunately, in the past, especially in the early days of the persecution, you saw some of that happening. Some verbatim Chinese Communist Party propaganda about Falun Gong was repeated in major Western media outlets.
Nick Haley, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Foreign money leaving China has reached a record high, according to the latest official data from last Friday. During the second quarter from April to June, direct investments in China hit negative, dropping $15 billion. Foreign investment in China has been in a slump since 2021. Rising geopolitical tensions between China and other countries, along with China's own economic woes, have made Chinese stocks less attractive. It's worth noting that if the declining trend continues, China would see its first net outflow since at least 1990. At the same time, Chinese firms invested over $71 billion in overseas businesses during the second quarter, jumping by over 80% compared to the second quarter of 2023. Four of China's top airlines seeing big losses from the first half of this year. This comes as fewer foreigners visit China and more foreign money leaves the country. The four biggest Chinese airlines haven't issued their final revenue reports from quarters 1 and 2, January through June, but they did provide estimates of their losses. The four companies are Air China, China Eastern Airlines, China Southern Airlines, and Hainan Airlines. The estimated revenue loss between them totals roughly $1 billion. Chinese media attributed the loss to the slow recovery of international travel routes after the pandemic. China's authorities say about 80% of international flights have resumed compared to 2019 levels from before the pandemic, while flights between the U.S. and China are only 1/3 of pre-pandemic levels. Earlier this year, China asked India to resume direct flights from India to China, but India refused. India first suspended direct flights to China 4 years ago when COVID-19 broke out. Taiwan's golden moment at the Paris Olympics was cut short on Chinese TV. Much of the men's doubles badminton match was censored. Taiwanese banners were also banned. Decades of cross-strait tension played out on the world's biggest stage. Let's take a look at the details.
On one side of the Taiwan Strait, celebration. On the other side, silence. China and Taiwan's epic badminton battle, ending with the island's first Paris Olympics gold in Taiwan, had millions glued to their screens. In China, state TV cut the live broadcast, only showing parts where its team played well. No medal ceremony, no celebration, just a sudden switch to gymnastics. Taiwanese fans in the stands say they were forcibly silenced.
I made a poster cheering on Taiwan in the shape of the island before the match. It was snatched away. Although this was a very sad incident, it exposed to the world what Taiwan faces all the time.
Taiwan's foreign ministry calls the incident a violation of Olympic values. The IOC says banners with political messages are not allowed. Taiwan is one of 3 flags banned by the Olympics, along with Russia and Belarus. Taiwan can only compete as Chinese Taipei, largely due to pressure by Beijing. China's communist leaders lay claim on the island democracy, despite having never controlled it.
Taiwan is a small island of 23 million people, so you can certainly understand the IOC's logic that if somebody has to be offended, Taiwan's going to be the one that has to be offended because they don't want to offend Beijing.
Longtime CNN Beijing correspondent Mike Chinoy says Olympic tensions between Taiwan and China go back to the 1960 Rome Games, when Taiwan's government agreed not to use the island's official name, just so its athletes could compete.
It's one of the many uncomfortable compromises that Taiwan has had to make in order to carve out what little international space it has.
With the Olympics underway, China's People's Liberation Army releasing this propaganda video, illustrating a full-scale attack on Taiwan. Taiwan's military releasing its own video in response, underscoring escalating cross-strait tensions on and off the court.
Why is the relationship between China and Taiwan so tense? For years, the Chinese Communist Party has claimed Taiwan as its own territory. Beijing also vowed to take over Taiwan by force if necessary. That's despite the fact that the CCP has never ruled the island. Taiwan's formal name is the Republic of China. The island's current government once ruled over mainland China until it lost the civil war to the CCP. After that, it retreated to the island of Taiwan in 1949, while the communists took power in mainland China. Now, Taiwan is governed by its own democratically elected leaders and constitution. Taiwan's free economic system has helped the island prosper, reaching 2.5 times China's GDP per capita. The stark contrast has, in Beijing's view, become an embarrassment for its own totalitarian system. On top of that, Taiwan's location is crucial for the region, as well as the security of the United States. If China gained control of Taiwan, Chinese submarines could access the deep waters of the Pacific Ocean and launch missiles capable of reaching the continental U.S. The Chinese regime has also been using the Taiwan issue to bolster domestic support for its rule. Promoting what Beijing calls reunification with Taiwan is an effort to enhance the Communist Party's legitimacy and distract the Chinese people from internal problems. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes. Just click the link down below. Here's what to look out for in our second half. The Philippines is asking China to de-escalate after what Manila described as very dangerous actions by 2 Chinese aircraft in the South China Sea. The tides are turning in the South China Sea as nations teaming up to counter Beijing's growing aggression. What could the key to curbing Beijing's ambitions be?
To put it simply, the biggest challenge we face is geography.
And the bid to overturn the convictions of Jimmy Lai and 6 other pro-democracy campaigners dismissed by Hong Kong's top court. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.